Our negotiators just lost contact with the suspect. They are angry and volatile. You are go for entry.
Our journey throughout Los Sueños has taken us through countless nightmares, from desperate addicts to sex predators to simple cold-blooded killers. Our time in this city has woven a tale of corruption and hate, but just like any other story, this one also has to come to an end. And as we should all be well aware of by now, in a place like Los Sueños, there are no happy endings. So join me today as we explore the story and the aftermath of Ready or Not's final mission, Hide and Seek. Now, during our previous mission at Caesar's car dealership, we learned that there was a lot of criminal activity flowing out of the nearby Port Hokan. While clearing the map, we'll actually find several trucks and other vehicles with the port's decal on the side. And as it turns out later, these vehicles were being used to transport everything from drugs to illegal guns. What's most alarming to us, though, in this mission are the apparent ties to human trafficking that this operation has. As in one of the dealership's offices, we're able to find a ton of forms documenting these crimes, with hundreds of women seemingly being trafficked through here as if they were cattle. And according to the evidence that these criminals left behind, all of this trafficking seems to be unfolding down at the port. Interestingly, we'll also receive some information from an informant that corroborates this evidence, claiming that Russian ships have been delivering thousands of illegal weapons into these docks. And while this informant doesn't directly mention anything about trafficked women, he does say that the port is about to receive one of the biggest shipments that he's ever seen. It's also worth mentioning here that after sharing this information with us, the informant claims that he intends to get the hell out of Los Sueños because he fears for his safety. So, with all of this information pointing us in the direction of Port Hokan, we'll make our way there to try and intercept this deal. We'll make our infiltration to the port via a small boat tucked away in a distant corner of the docks. The rain pounds down on the pavement in front of us, and a distant fog creeps out over the entire shipyard. Needless to say, visibility is pretty bad on this map, so bringing nods or a flashlight are a definite must-have. Creeping our way forward, though, we'll find the first of many strange sights on this map. A shipping container, marked with that familiar spider graffiti. Now, as we'll later come to find out, this graffiti is a way for the spider to keep track of all of their different shipments. So it'll be really important for us to investigate any of these marked containers that we find going forward. However, this first container only contains toys and soccer balls. Now, in my opinion, I think it's unlikely that the spider is actually transporting toys alongside all of their drugs and weapons. So this container is likely just meant to serve as a decoy. After all, if we only found toys in this first container, then why would we need to worry about any of the other ones? Rest assured though, as we continue to clear this map, these shipping crates will only grow more and more unsettling, and it'll be pivotal to this operation that we check each and every one that we come across. Moving forward though, we'll begin to encounter the first few enemies of this map, most of which are wearing face masks or other bizarre coverings. Something that's also worth mentioning here is that some of the dock workers themselves are also carrying guns. So it's important to make sure that we secure everyone we encounter here. Not all of our enemies are going to be wearing ski masks. Moving past this though, we'll find another one of the containers marked with that spider symbol. However, this time, instead of toys, we'll find a large quantity of drugs hidden inside. So we'll report this container to TOC and continue moving forward. Now, what follows after this is a maze of shipping containers and small outbuildings, but none of these really hold anything of real consequence though. In one of the buildings, we can find where someone has jotted down the poem The Lady of Shalott in a notebook. However, from my interpretation of it, this doesn't really have too much to do with our current situation. I imagine that this notebook is just a generic asset. What captured my attention in this area though was a car that I found in one of the nearby shipping containers, and this car looks awfully familiar to one of the ones that we saw at Caesar's car dealership. Now, if you guys can remember, one of the things that the criminals at the dealership were doing was smuggling drugs in through their cars. And they did this by hiding the drugs in the car's door panels. That way they could smuggle insane amounts of drugs anywhere they needed to go, and to the outside eye, it just looked like a normal car. And given our current situation and the fact that this vehicle's in a marked spider container, I can only assume that this is one of the dealership's drugged vehicles. Continuing a bit further through this maze, we'll come across yet another marked shipping container, this one carrying a large amount of illegal weapons. After notifying Talk and moving past it though, we'll find ourselves standing in front of the Blue Fuel building. Now, if the name of the company didn't already give it away, Blue Fuel is a large natural gas company within the Ready or Not universe. And all throughout this shipyard, we'll find trucks and reserve tanks bearing this company's logo. Now, for whatever reason, this particular area in front of this building always seems to be flooded with enemies for me. Compared to other sections of the map, this one's actually quite difficult because you can find yourself getting shot from either end of the street. So as we go to make our way across this road, it's really important for us to keep our head on a swivel. Upon entering the Blue Fuel building though, the only thing that we'll really find in here is a computer. On it is an article that mentions how the company has almost exhausted their energy reserves and how this is likely going to lead to an energy crisis within Los Sueños. And while the ramifications of that are going to be horrible for the city, this doesn't really have too much to do with our current situation. So with that being said, we'll continue to move forward. Making our way back out into the rain, we can see what appears to be a large command tower of some sort. And if we can make it to the top of it without dying, we'll have a really good location to snipe some of the enemies down below. Seeing the map from up here gives us a much better idea of just how large this operation is. There are easily thousands of shipping containers throughout this shipyard, and there's no telling how many of those are wrapped up in the spider's schemes. If we head back inside of the tower though, we can find an email exchange on one of the nearby computers, which gives us a better idea of what the employees witness on a day-to-day basis.
Hey dude, seriously, we gotta talk. There's some seriously strange shit happening in the back of the warehouse. We're not allowed anywhere near the back. And on the late shifts, there are cars and trucks that turn up and leave that aren't on the records anywhere. I swear to God, I'm going crazy. I'm sure I heard a woman scream.
Look, man, I hear you. All I'm saying is you don't get paid enough to care. I would leave that well alone. Also, who gives a fuck? What? You think that the boss doesn't know that this isn't a thing? Shit, he's probably on the take. How else you think whatever that is happens, man? Whatever it is, keep your head down, do your job, get paid, and go home.
I get you, bro. I'm just jittery, I guess. I really need this job and I'm already behind on my rent. Some of these late shift guys are packing some serious heat on the job. Shit's scary to be around sometimes.
Now this email offers us a really unique perspective into the lives of regular Los Sueños citizens. Due to the horrible living conditions and overwhelming crime in the city, most folks are just trying to scrape by. So even if they notice some blatantly criminal activity, they turn a blind eye to it, either out of fear for their safety or fear for their jobs. I find this dynamic here to be really interesting, right? Because it almost acts as a sort of mutually assured destruction for the regular employees here. Sure, they could take it upon themselves to report what they found here, but in response, they would either be killed or lose their jobs. In the grand scheme of things, they might be doing a good deed, but this good deed would be horrifically destructive to their own lives. And while we can't necessarily excuse this behavior, it's awful that you're turning a blind eye to this stuff happening. I feel like this message does make the workers a little bit more sympathetic. And after reading it, I can understand why they've decided to stay silent for so long. Making our way down the tower and back outside though, we'll find ourselves standing in front of Warehouse 13. But just before we make entry, something in the corner of our vision catches our eye. It's a single shipping container, sitting all by itself, once again bearing the mark of the spider. However, when we go to open it, we're met with something that far exceeds all of the containers we've seen thus far. Inside of this container, we'll find 7 women, cold, shivering, and barely clothed. They were shipped here from some far-off place and have endured these horrific conditions for God knows how long. This initial shock is only half of the picture though, because this situation becomes a lot worse when we report this container to TOC.
TOC, we have a container full of women. We need Thames down here right now.
Copy that. Entry team, EFTs and trailers are...
This is FISA. Stand down and shut that door, entry team. We're sending a unit to secure the container and its contents.
What? We're not leaving them like this.
Close the doors. Unless you want to interfere with a federal investigation, I suggest you shut the door and lock it behind you. Do your job and proceed with your mission. Understood?
Understood. Put the other guy back on. We'll talk later.
No, we won't be. FISA out.
Now, to me, this call could signal two things, and neither of them are good in the slightest. We could take this FISA agent at his word and believe that this is all just tied to a federal investigation, but that would mean that the feds are willing to sacrifice the well-being and safety of victims in order to try and capture members of the Spider. They would be willing to let these women continue to be trafficked if it just meant that they could get more arrests, which is horrific. This ignores the entire point of policing, and it paints a really demented picture of how the larger agencies in this game operate. And the second option is equally, if not more, horrific. You see, this call could also indicate that this FISA agent is part of the Spider's operation. Now, we've seen this sort of thing before in the past, with Agent Jack Adams and the Greased Palms operation. Members of Los Locos essentially paid him off to turn a blind eye to their activities. So it isn't really out of the ordinary here for FISA agents to become corrupt. And from what we've seen thus far, the Spider is a much larger group than Los Locos, with a lot more money at their disposal. So I wouldn't really be surprised if they managed to pay off one of the men on this task force to operate with their best interests in mind. And upon further thought, I think that this is the most likely scenario too, because as we've seen throughout the earlier portions on this mission, the FISA agent never butted in when we discovered the drugs or guns, but only once we uncovered the human trafficking, the service that the Spider has based its entire reputation off of. So it's only natural that they'd want to keep that particular container protected. Anyways though, regardless of how we feel about what just happened, we did receive direct orders. So we're forced to close the door on these women, and that'll be the last that we see of them for the rest of the game. Continuing into the actual warehouse though, we'll wind up encountering another slew of enemies. However, now that we're in a more confined area, the fight itself should be pretty easy. And once we're able to take all of these guys out, we'll be able to search around this area a bit before moving on. And the first thing that I found worth mentioning in here was yet another one of the marked Spider containers. However, this time instead of women or drugs, it's servers. The same servers that we found at the MindJot data center, and the same servers which contained terabytes of illegal CSAM. And a surprise to literally nobody, it seems that the Spider is also making money by catering to pedophiles. Moving onward though, we'll find what appears to be a deal location, marked by two cars focusing their headlights on yet another shipping container. However, as we investigate a bit further, we'll find that this container is actually a facade, as when we open it, it reveals a secret hallway that goes further into the building. Now, compared to the rest of the map, this particular portion feels a bit otherworldly. Instead of that cold green light that we saw throughout our entire time outside, this hallway is baked in a much more unsettling red, and the walls are adorned in mannequins and barbed wire. It feels as if you're descending into something truly wicked and vile, and thus the container is appropriately titled Belly of the Beast. Making our way through this corridor though, we'll eventually reach an auction room that appears as though it's been decorated by a Batman villain. Now, this room, as you can probably expect, is bad. Very bad. Firstly, we're able to find a row of laptops, which all show masked buyers who were participating in this auction. Now, at first glance, I just thought that these were static images and that they wouldn't really move or anything. But suddenly, one by one, each of the men began to reach out to turn off their laptops, which for whatever reason was really unsettling to me. Another thing that really got under my skin was the wall of photos labeled Today's Menu, which seems to show the women that are being auctioned off here. And horrifically, about halfway down this list, we'll find a photo of a girl who can't be older than 4 or 5 years old. Next to this, we'll find an audio recording of one of the auctions taking place, and we'll listen as a young woman is sold for $23,000. She's cataloged and announced as if she were livestock, and then, after she's sold, we listen as she's dragged away. On the opposite side of this auction area, we'll find the conditions that these women have been kept in, and they're horrific to say the least. Small mattresses and blankets lay spread out over the floor, next to which sits bowls and bags of dog food. These women are being fed and treated like literal animals, and then their captors have the audacity to dress them up and parade them out to the highest bidder. It's despicable. A line written on a nearby wall makes it clear that these women are being tortured too, as it says, "Do as you're told, or you will get the hose." And in the previous room that we were just in, we'll find a whip with the same name. The conditions that these women have been kept in is monstrous, and the fact that so many of them have been sold through a port like this is horrific. And although we've taken out all of the enemies on this map, we can't help but feel like we haven't really made a difference here. We weren't able to identify any of the men on the laptops. We arrived too late to stop any of the previous auctions. And worst of all, we were commanded by the federal government to close the door on women who desperately needed our help. And with no other choice here but to hang our head, we'll head back to the station for debrief. Now, this particular mission has a lot for us to unpack here, but before we do, we'll need to take a look at some of the evidence we found. Now, to me, the most important piece of evidence here are the various blackmail letters that the Spider left employees on the docks. These letters threatened the lives of the workers and their families if they didn't go along with what the Spider demanded, and 2 of these letters read as follows.
Alex Sean Jacobs, Social Security number 221221896. Mother's name is Joanna Jacobs. Birth name Janika Fendick. Born March 5th, 1970. You work at Port Hokan as an artificial lift specialist. Last week you saw something in the containers and reported it to your site manager. Your site manager is now missing. I watched your baby daughter sleeping last week. I stood over her and held a pillow over her face as she kicked her pink fleece blanket from the crib. I removed it and slipped away. I returned the next week and watched as you and your wife argued over whose turn it was to clean the dishes. You are being watched. You will be asked to do something for us, and it will be wise to follow that request.
The second note is made out to a separate employee and came attached with a photo of a small house.
Penelope, you overheard something today. We saw you on the cameras. 2 have followed you home. We know where you live, and those 2 find you very attractive. If you tell anyone about what you heard, we will let our dogs loose. Do not contact authorities. We are not bluffing.
Now, through listening to these letters, it becomes pretty clear to us that the Spider has been keeping this operation going by intimidating the port employees into silence. And if a problematic person decides to be a hero, then they simply make that person disappear, just like they did with Alex's site manager. It's really unsettling to hear how cold and heartless these men are. I mean, obviously, to traffic other human beings, you have to be pretty cold and heartless, but doing things like attempting to smother a baby or threatening to rape a woman is despicable. I think that these notes really help to paint a fuller picture of the type of evil people we're dealing with here. But these aren't the only notes that we'll find in this evidence room. You see, we'll also find a painting titled Uncertain Ventures, which has several hidden notes attached to the back of it. Notes which have been written by the girls being trafficked. It seems that they intended to hide these notes in the back of this painting, hopeful that at some point someone would find them and be able to use it to locate them. And the notes on the back of it read as follows.
To whoever reads this, they're sending us far from here. We haven't been fed for days, and the pain is unbearable. We're fighting for crumbs. Girls who attempted to escape were made examples of, and some of them were dealt with. I can't feel anything. I feel so cold. Day 40. The others here are from nowhere near the city. 2 sisters from Kazakhstan with us died from starving to death. They were dead in the container with us for days. They told us we were being trafficked and that they came from St. Petersburg. I only knew them for a month, but they took care of each other and us. I hope they're in a better place now. I never even learned their names. I can't keep count. There are now men we haven't seen before coming in. Out of the 13 girls in my container, I'm the only one left. God, please send someone. I don't have long left. Venus.
The next note that we find is just as depressing as the other one.
My name is Dina Ivanova. I'm a student from Kazakhstan. Me and my sister Victoria were taken from our hometown Petropavl by men with guns who beat us. They threatened to kill us if we tried to escape. My sister could not stop crying. They began beating us and giving us drugs. We woke up in another city with other women. One told us we were being trafficked and there was nothing we could do. Whatever these people injected us with made my sister very ill. She's been unable to walk. Maybe it was one of the bastards who hit her around the head when we were being moved. Days in captivity have become weeks. They kept me and my sister together in a container that people were in before. The smell here is unbearable. We heard others mention St. Petersburg and Los Sueños. Wherever they send us, I'll protect my sister. She's unable to move her legs now and can barely speak. I miss you, Mama.
Now, through reading both of these notes, we'll know that the 2 sisters wound up starving to death. But it's unclear whatever became of Venus. Perhaps she was one of the women that we saw in the shipping container. Or maybe we arrived too late and she's already been auctioned off. Unfortunately, there's really no way of us knowing. What we do know for certain, though, is that this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Spider. It's clear to us that they're a global crime organization, the likes of which we've never seen before, and their connections extend far past what we see them doing in Los Sueños. And after our encounter with them in Port Hokan, we can't help but feel defeated. Sure, we were able to arrest a few of them, but a lot of these men are still out there. A lot of their victims are still out there. And without a reliable method of tracking these men down, then it's unlikely we'll ever be able to find the women that they kidnapped. In fact, I don't think that we'll slow this operation down all that much. I think these men will simply pack up shop and move to a different city, which is hardly the thing that you want to hear after you've seen all of this. If there's one thing that our journey in Los Sueños has taught us, though, one thing that we've learned through all of the gunfights and raids and deployments, it's that there's no such thing as a happy ending in this city. You might be able to take away the drugs, you might be able to lock away the crooks, but the darkness here always remains. From gas stations to talent agencies to shipyards, evil always finds a way in Los Sueños. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch today's video and for supporting this series. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to my channel or joining my Patreon. For just $1 a month, you too can have your name listed alongside all of these other awesome people and potentially read aloud by me. This week's special thanks goes out to my dear friend Oscar Mejia, Synthetic, Trevor Norman, and Gary King. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, and thank all of you for spending your day with me. You know I love you. I'm out.